Hello and welcome to the Convo presented by Leadership Indianapolis. I am Ebony Chappelle, Manager of Programs and Communication, and today I am talking with Dane Nutty of the Indianapolis Public Safety Foundation. Dane, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
Great, great. So happy to be talking with you.
Likewise.
So bring us up to speed for people that maybe aren't familiar with your foundation. Tell us about the work it is that you do in the community.
Absolutely. Well, first, thanks for having us today. We're excited to be able to share a little bit about what we're doing in normal times, as well as what we've done during COVID and during some of the other issues we've seen this year. So the Indy Public Safety Foundation, we're a relatively new organization. We're a little over 5 years old. And our goal is fairly simple. We create resources and relationships between first responder agencies and the community. So those our core agencies that we support are Indy's public safety agencies, being the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, so IMPD, the Indianapolis Fire Department, and Indianapolis EMS. And so all in, we support about 3,200 first responders. And so a lot of what we do surrounds about creating resources and meeting unbudgeted needs of equipment, training, resources they need to do their jobs more effectively and serve the community better. And then the other side of that is we do also directly run a few programs, especially in the youth space and youth engagement and recruitment.
I noticed you have the Indy Pal in the background.
Yeah. My two, and count me Indy, another very important thing that happened this year. Right? So.
Yes. Yes. So you were mentioning about the work that you all have done during COVID. So I know that those first responders are the people that are on the ground doing this work and helping to keep all of us safe, but they need support as well. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So really early on, when things started, the picture became clear in March that we were really heading into a very challenging time. Our board of directors and our staff decided that we would launch our separate COVID-19 response fund with a very targeted response to support first responders. Of course, that's the folks that we serve. And so we launched that. We got great support from the community, raised over $75,000 that we invested in various things that I'll share about, but really was just to make sure that as they're going out, a lot of us were at home, we're doing what we could do to be part of the solution in slowing the spread. They were required to go out and do their jobs every day, right? And potentially expose themselves, expose their families. So we wanted to make sure they had the support and resources they need to be effective and to feel safe and to feel supported. So a lot of that was around food. So of course we know the way to show somebody you love them oftentimes is to give them a plate of delicious food. So
especially after a hard day of work.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so, a lot of our first responders, especially early on, were doing 16, 20-hour days, 7 days a week. So not only is it a support function and just a way for us to recognize their sacrifice and their service, early on, we recognized very quickly it was also a way to help limit their potential exposure. So, grocery stores were a little chaotic at the beginning. Restaurants were kind of opening and closing based on different schedules. During their schedule, if they got off work at 9:30 at night, there may be nothing open for them. So we thought this was an additional way to be able to provide access to food. We can help limit their potential exposure, which for them and their family is fairly important. So we did that. We also helped provide care kits to any of our first responders who did test positive for COVID-19. So for a first responder, they're typically the ones that are, even if they've got a cough or a cold, they're out doing their job. The public safety doesn't stop, right? And the needs don't stop. So for them to be quarantined at home for 14 days is particularly challenging. Of course, it's challenging for anybody, and we're very sympathetic for anybody that was suffering from the illness. But with our folks, we wanted to make sure that during that period of time, they felt connected to the agency, that they knew we had support there for them, and then just providing a few little goodies, of course, just to keep them keep their spirits up during that time. So that was another big piece. And then we also worked with kind of a coalition of folks that helped. We were kind of the facilitator, and we weren't the lead in this project, but helping provide portable restrooms for individuals experiencing homelessness. So during that period of time, that's really, really important too. And so we wanted to make sure that, our homeless friends and neighbors, that we were thinking about them and supporting their needs as well.
Wow. So there is just such a broad scope
Yes.
of the work that you all do, which is why we at Leadership Indianapolis are so excited to be partnered with you to do an upcoming event that is going to happen, which is an audio book club for the book Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, and it's a young adult novel that talks about the issue of gun violence, which has plagued our city at record-breaking numbers for the past 5 years, but speaks about that from the perspective of a person with lived experience and not so much centered on the policy. I want to have you speak a little bit to your thoughts coming from the Indy Public Safety Foundation of partnering to bring this conversation to the community and to leaders.
Oh, absolutely. So this is something we've been talking about and intended to do prior to kind of COVID taking over 2020. And the reason is a lot of what we do, obviously we support the direct needs of first responders, but we also try to create relationships and dialogue between police, fire, EMS, and the communities they serve. So this is a great way to get folks that may not have experience or knowledge of the way that our first responders work, and to start having some of those challenging discussions that we obviously need to have as a community. So we've wanted to do this for a long time. Certainly after everybody kind of got their bearing with how do we operate in a virtual world, we're excited to move forward with this idea with you guys. And I think, again, our main viewpoint is we want to stress that every person in our community, no matter who you're looking at, they have lived experience, right? Based on how they've grown up, their families, their jobs, their education, you name it. And oftentimes what we find in the work we do connecting law enforcement and fire and EMS with communities is that when you start peeling back the onion a little bit, you realize that everybody just wants the same thing, right? They want to be safe and healthy and happy. And so the more opportunities that we can have to kind of get a glimpse of somebody else's lived experience, to have just a little bit different perspective, it helps us start to bridge the gap, have dialogue, and again, have some of those challenging conversations that we are having and are going to need to continue to have to address such significant issues as gun violence. So I think this is a great step in that direction. Very cool to be able to hear it from somebody that has experienced that, right? Not a lot of us. I mean, there's a lot of us that have experienced gun violence, but many of us have not too. So we're excited to be participate on that. And then, like we shared as well, obviously, in addition to COVID, we've had a challenging year here with IMPD, and we lost an officer to gun violence, and that's a significant hit to the morale that's already fairly low and kind of in tension, right? And so we wanted to also bring in that perspective. So again, it's this really cool, meaningful two-way dialogue between folks that may have totally different experiences, but again, like I said, at the end of the day, we all kind of want the same things.
Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing that, especially from the perspective of those with lived experience. No matter what that experience is, we know that this impacts all of us. I want to wrap up by asking you about the concept of leadership. I know that you've gone through SKL and have had, I know, several different opportunities to glean leadership lessons. So I want to have you highlight what are some of those that have helped guide you to thrive during this time, because you guys are doing so much, there's so much going on, and you were just rising to the occasion. But what has helped propel you to do that?
Absolutely. I think one thing, of course, anybody that's been through SKL knows that's a transformative experience that really not only kind of hypes you up, but really challenges the way that you look at things. And, the relationships we build in there and the things we learned will last for the rest of my life. But one of the biggest things I think I took away that I've seen applied during this period of time is the ability to be vulnerable. So oftentimes as leaders, we're taught that we have to have a strong face and power through and not be human at some point, right? So to be able to say, hey, look, we're all as a community suffering, not only from COVID, but also, conversations about, racism and communities of color and law enforcement having, dialogue. So we're all vulnerable, and to be able to take that step and open up myself to say, I'm this, and this, or I think this, and this, and I need some help with this area. That's really helped move us through this period of time where we're all struggling in various ways. So I think that vulnerability is something we're taught to kind of compartmentalize, and to let that out a little bit has been helpful for me. Two is just the power of relationships. I mean, that is incredible. The power of networks and relationships, not only through XScale, but obviously in a lot of the work that we do, it really, we can send emails all day long, but it's about those 5-minute conversations. It's about running into somebody. It's about having a a random conversation about your family or your friends or your work, that's what's kind of propelled and again gives you kind of a robust idea on how to address some of the issues we're facing as a community. So I think that power of relationships and leaning on folks and having them lean on you has been helpful as well. So those have been a few of the things in terms of leadership. And again, it's just doing, acting, right? I mean, we can talk all day long. We can have meetings. We can have Zoom calls now all day long. But sometimes you just got to try something out, put it out there and see what the response is, and feel comfortable knowing that if it's not a great response, you learn from it and come up with a different idea.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Dane, I just want to say thank you again for your time and your thoughts and all of the incredible work that the Indy Public Safety Foundation is doing in our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in to this convo. Have a great day and a positive week.